And hello and welcome to a special broadcast here on WFRZ-TV. I'm Dan Atkinson, and for the next hour we're going to be looking for most of the next hour at a compelling video on home education. Great video that you're going to find fascinating, especially if you and your family are considering getting into home education yourself. But before we do that, we're going to talk to the film's producer, and that is Daniel Johnson, or Dan Johnson. Dan, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
I know that you have come to this point of putting together your first video as a realization of a great dream God has given you, and there are many more films and videos that you intend to work on in the years to come as God gives you the opportunity. But I know you have started out in the IT field and still do some of that work. Tell us how you're making this transition and why.
Right. Well, back when I was about 14 years old, which was 22 years ago, I had a vision and a dream of doing Christ-centered, biblically based films and videos, and that dream has stayed with me all these years. And of course, I've found myself in information technology as a way to pay the bills and keep the family fed, so to speak. But like you said, as God makes a way, we're going to continue making some films, and this documentary on home education represents our first project that we've been able to do. So we're excited about it.
What sorts of other topics do you foresee perhaps working on maybe in the next 2 or 3 years?
Well, we'd like to do feature films. We'd like to do films that take a biblical principle, biblical concept, and package that up into a dramatic presentation that people will enjoy. Facing the Giants, which Sherwood Church did in Georgia, is a great example of what we'd like to do as well.
Well, you did most of the work for this documentary in Memphis, I think.
Yes, sir.
Tell us how you selected that particular site and how you brought together a crew to work on this with you.
Sure. There's a fellow named Dave Parkerson, who you're going to see in the film in just a minute, who had an idea that he wanted to do a documentary on home education. And of course, David and I are good friends, and he knew that I wanted to make films, so it was a natural fit. So we went up to his place in Memphis and selected 6 families and filmed those 6 families, and of course brought that footage back and edited it.
Now, you've had your hand in at every stage of the game.
Sure.
You're not just producer, but as you indicate, you've edited too. What do you see as the most enjoyable part for you to play? I know God has given you a number of gifts that you can apply in various stages of the production. But
it's the creative side.
Yes.
It's definitely the creative side. You know, if we could get somebody to do all the business side, I'd be happy. But it's definitely the creative part, and making sure that the end result has a powerful message and a moving message that touches people.
Well, in the process of looking at homeschooling as it exists in this country today, I'm sure you have probably seen some very inspiring stories of individual families, even some inspiring statistics. Is it true that some of the highest SAT scores today are among the homeschooling groups as opposed to those who come up through public and private universities?
That's right, and there's a lot of people that are better at statistics than I am. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association, hslda.org, captures a lot of those statistics, and they have proven, and others have proven, that homeschooled children typically do better on the standard test, the college entrance exams. I think the National Spelling Bee has been won the past several years in a row by homeschooled children.
Well, we can be sure, Dan, that as we present this documentary, there are going to be many who are tuned in who have been considering the possibility of homeschooling their children. This is not an accident. God has brought you as our viewer to this hour to help you see His direction for your family. This may not be for you, may be for you, but in light of the fact that this is a God appointment, what would you say to those families who are tuned in now who might possibly find this as the real answer to their need?
I think it's God tasked the father and the mother to train their children in a godly way, and I don't want to get into what the film says. I want to let the film speak for itself, but it's the parents' responsibility, and so many times Christian parents are turning that over to someone else. And So just an encouragement, you know, Psalm 127, like arrows in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of one's youth. It's dad's responsibility to sharpen and train and perfect that arrow, so when it's released, it strikes the heart of the enemy. And so, you know, Christian dads should recognize and realize it's their job to bring those children in and train them and make sure that they're ready for the battle.
Well, one last question before we turn our attention to the actual documentary, Home Education. This will be the first time for our viewers. It won't be the first time for you, but I want you to go back to your first time after getting it completely edited and the music was added and all the things that have made it a finished product. Can you remember how you felt the first time you watched it all the way through? How did it move you?
It's difficult for me to say because I've seen it so many times, thousands of times, but,
oh, yes.
but I do know that people that have watched it for the first time, especially mothers, are brought to tears over understanding these truths that are presented on here and how important it is for them to be actively involved in training their children on a daily basis.
Well, Dan, after we have seen the documentary, we're going to have a little bit of time still to wrap up the hour and look forward to talking with you then. But right now, we're going to show you this compelling documentary, Home Education. Enjoy it, learn from it, and listen for God's voice. What a powerful documentary. That's called Home Education. If you've just joined us since the beginning of the program, we're talking today during this special hour-long broadcast on WFRZ with Dan Johnson. Dan is the producer of this documentary. And Dan, I'm sure not a one of us who have seen this documentary now will soon forget that moving prayer by Alan Quinn, a father of 10, I think, who are homeschooled.
Yes, sir.
You must feel a special kinship with him, and you must be delighted to be able to get this film on the air today.
We didn't know most of the people that are on the film before we started. And you're right, after filming them and after hearing their heart and then through the editing process and listening to them over and over in the concepts they were presenting, it was very powerful, and I do feel a kinship to each one.
Well, what would you say to the viewer now who has a sense that this may well be the direction God's leading them to stop looking at the dollars and cents and saying, you know, we can't do this, and to look at the possibilities that God may open up?
You know, just like they discussed on the film, there are so many people that are there waiting to help. There's the co-ops and the organizations even here in town, the umbrella schools and whatnot, and mothers that have been doing this for 25 years that just want to take a young mother or a young family under their arm and help them do that. And so you just have to get on the internet and do a search, and those things will pop up, and call those people. Here in Central Alabama, of course, there's the Chef of Alabama, which has a convention, a statewide convention. There's umbrella schools here in Montgomery, which your child can register with, your family can, and they can pursue those avenues. Well,
you are, of course, planning on other films and videos out down the line, and we'll wrap up in a moment with more about Home Education. But I wondered, what are some of the other projects that you're making plans for now?
Well, we're working with some folks at our church, which is Taylor Road Baptist Church, and we are working with some folks to develop some story ideas for a feature film. And so, you know, if we do have any interest, anybody out there who's interested in participating in that aspect at this point, story development, screenwriting, they can contact me through our website, ilightmedia.org, and they can contact me and I can get them more information that way.
Well, now shifting our attention back to the documentary, I'm sure that given the fact that you had to cut a lot out, that things like this are by nature whittled down and things end up on the cutting room floor, so to speak. You must have met a lot of families, and you got to know a lot of parents and kids who meant a lot to you. Is there any particular situation or family situation that you can think of that you were not able to include in the film, but that you'd like to tell us about?
Each one is unique, each one of the families, and that's the neat thing about homeschool. I can't think of a particular clip that comes to mind, but what I can tell you is that each family is unique in the way that they do their home education. And really, it's parent driven. That mother, just like was mentioned in the film, that mother knows those children better than anyone else on the face of the earth, and she knows what that child needs. And together with her husband, they can develop a curriculum and a plan for each individual child that's tailored for their natural abilities, their God-given wiring.
Now you have, what, 4 children yourself?
I do.
You and I were talking before the cameras were turned on here today, and you were talking about the uniqueness of each of your children. Tell us something about that and how you see that fitting into home education.
Right. My oldest daughter loves art. She loves to draw. She loves to paint. My second-born son, you know, he's more logical thinker, kind of like me, you know, more mathematical. And I've got a Mr. Personality, my third child, who's built like a brick. You know, he could probably play football, but he's just got that personality that everyone loves. And then my youngest daughter, I'm not sure yet. She's not old enough for me to really see that. But again, we have 3 different ones, and they're all wired differently. And we can take that education and we can train them in their unique wiring and focus on those things to which they're gifted to do.
And you have seen so clearly that not a one of your youngsters would really fit well in a public school setting, would they?
Right, just like David mentioned, you know, it's a standardized curriculum and a standardized approach and standardized test. And none of my children would be receiving all that they could within that environment.
Well, as we move into the closing moment, I just wonder if in the course of producing this documentary on home education, there must have been some miraculous interventions at times. Can you tell us 1 or 2 things that God did for you and in a sense surprised you and then again didn't surprise you?
That's a great question. One of the fellows that I hired to work with me on this project was a producer out of Canada. And this fellow's done a lot of television over 20 years of his career. And he said, as we went to each place and we interviewed each person, he said, Dan, I would not have believed that you would have gotten the content that you did with these individuals, because I've been doing this for a long time. And he says, I've never seen these few people produce such precise and articulate verbiage on. And he was amazed at the testimony that came out. He said to me, we should have interviewed 100 people to get what we got. And he was amazed that each interview was so unique and tailored to what we were trying to achieve.
Yes. Well, it's come together in a beautiful way, and we thank you, Dan, for allowing us to see it today and share it with our WFRZ viewers. We've been talking with Dan Johnson. Dan, look forward to next time when your next film comes out.
Thank you.
And we've been looking at home education. Dan, tell us one more time, the website is?
Our website is ilightmedia.org, and they'll put that across the bottom here. So
Good, good. Well, I know a lot of folks will be in touch and take advantage of the work you've done. We thank you for joining us for this special telecast here on WFRZ, and take care.